Picture this scenario for a second. You are exactly, say, 5 minutes out from a massive, high-stakes global Zoom call.
Okay.
And you have spent, you've spent the last 3 weeks preparing a 30-slide deck on this really highly complex technical migration.
Right.
You know the back-end data inside and out. You've anticipated every technical question. You are just entirely ready to crush the presentation.
Yeah, because you're completely in your element, right? Like when it comes to the actual work, the technical side is where you live.
Exactly. But then you log into the virtual meeting room a couple of minutes early.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the screen pops up. And it's just you, your department head who's based in Chicago, and, maybe a senior project manager logging in from Berlin.
Right, okay.
And there are no slides on the screen yet. There's no agenda to hide behind. It's just 2 minutes of dead air to fill before everyone else joins.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of non-native English speakers, and honestly, for a huge portion of introverts as well, this is the exact moment the brain just entirely blue screens.
It's the absolute definition of conversational panic.
Yeah.
I mean, the gap between your professional competence and your conversational confidence suddenly just feels like this unbridgeable canyon.
It really does. And that gap is exactly what we are exploring in this deep dive today. We've pulled together an incredible stack of research.
Yeah, right.
We've got communication strategies for global teams, active listening manuals, cross-cultural psychological profiles, and insights from platforms dedicated to professional English, like Talera, Online Class, Case Basics, Rahul Kale, Aventis, Smalltalk Master, and the Polyglottis Language Academy.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot. But the mission here is to decode the unspoken rules of workplace small talk. But look, before we get into any of the tactics, I kind of have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If I'm a developer, right, or a data analyst, I have, 99 problems on my plate right now, and casual banter is not one of them.
Right.
So why can't I just keep my mic muted, smile politely, and sit in silence for 2 minutes until the meeting starts? Like, why does this even matter?
Well, it's a fair question, especially when you are, primarily measured by your technical output.
Right, the code.
Yeah, the code, the data. But treating small talk as just this useless filler before the quote-unquote real work begins is a massive miscalculation.
A miscalculation. How?
Because those unscripted margins of the day,
Yeah.
the pre-meeting warm-up, or that casual Slack message before you ask for a file, or the quick catch-up while you're waiting for a software update.
Yeah.
That is actually where relationship equity is formed on global teams.
Relationship equity. So you mean like the social capital you build up with your coworkers?
Yes, exactly. Over weeks and months, these tiny micro-interactions build this reservoir of goodwill.
Okay, I see.
Because think about it. When you need a massive favor, or you need someone to expedite a request, or say you miss a deadline, and you really need the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah, I've been there.
we all have. People don't extend that grace to a resume
Right.
or a technical skill set.
Hmm.
They extend it to a human being that they feel a connection with. So small talk isn't a distraction from the work. In a globalized remote environment, it is literally the lubricant that allows the work to happen smoothly.
Okay, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So the silence might feel safe, but it's fundamentally this huge missed opportunity to build that safety net.
Absolutely.
But that brings us to the core problem, I think, because communication strategists point out that there is a massive psychological barrier preventing people from just jumping in, especially for non-native speakers.
Right.
There's this overwhelming anxiety surrounding the language barrier. People are terrified that, their accent or maybe a single misplaced verb is going to make them look less competent in front of leadership.
And that fear is just so paralyzing.
Yeah.
But it's built on a fundamentally flawed premise.
Yeah.
An accent is not a professional flaw.
Yeah.
It is simply a reflection of your identity, your geography, your life experience. I mean, in today's global business environment, having an accent is the statistical norm.
Right. Everybody has one, basically.
Exactly. The problem is that non-native speakers often create this massive cognitive load for themselves by trying to mask it.
Cognitive load. You mean like that they're just overwhelming their own brain's processing power?
Yeah. I mean, think about what is actually happening in the brain of a non-native speaker who is trying to be, quote unquote, perfect in a casual chat.
Okay.
They are simultaneously translating from their mother tongue.
Right.
They're running a real-time grammar check. They're searching a mental dictionary for advanced vocabulary. And they're trying to decode the cultural social cues of their boss all at the same time.
Oh, man, yeah.
When your brain hits that level of multitasking, it literally freezes. You get that blank mind. that panic.
That panic, yeah. Which is why the research heavily emphasizes that using simple A2 to B1 level English, which means, basic, clear, structurally simple sentences. That's actually far more effective for global communication than trying to bust out these complex, flowery idioms.
It's exactly what the communication strategist Rahul Kohli refers to as prioritizing connection over perfection.
Connection over perfection. I like that.
Yeah, because when you are desperately trying to formulate the most grammatically flawless, sophisticated sentence possible, you aren't actually listening to the other person anymore.
Oh, that's true.
We're just preparing a solo performance.
And small talk is not a performance.
No.
You don't have to be the office comedian. A calm, respectful tone is valued infinitely more in business than someone trying to be this charismatic entertainer.
Right.
Listening to this, it sounds like non-native speakers are treating small talk like, I don't know, like a high-stakes gymnastics routine.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Right, like they feel like they have to sprint down the runway, do 3 backflips, and stick a flawless landing every single time they unmute their microphone.
Yeah, and the pressure of that is just immense.
It is. But really, casual conversation is just a simple game of catch. You just have to gently toss the ball back.
I really like that framing.
Yeah.
The gymnastics routine is a solo high-pressure event, whereas catch is collaborative.
Right.
And because we want to eliminate that paralyzing cognitive load, we have to give the brain a much simpler job to do.
Exactly.
And that's where we move into the tactical playbook. If your brain is spinning out in the silence, you need a structural framework to rely on.
Okay, so what does that scaffolding look like in practice? Because we need something tangible here.
Well, one of the most effective structures comes from professional English coaches at Talera, and it's called the EASE framework.
EASC.
Right, ease. It breaks the process of, tossing the ball back into 4 very manageable steps, starting with E for environment.
Environment, meaning what? Like commenting on the weather?
Well, it can be, but it's broader than that. It means anchoring the conversation in a shared reality. You don't have to invent a witty icebreaker. You just observe what is happening right now in the context you both share.
Right.
So if you are on Zoom, you might say, I see the sun is finally shining through your window over there. Or, I really like your virtual background. Is that a photo you took?
Oh, okay.
Or if it's a project meeting, it could be, did you have a chance to grab coffee before we dive into these Q3 numbers? It is incredibly safe, shared ground.
You're just establishing that you both exist in the same space, even if it's virtual.
Yes, exactly. Then you move to the A, which stands for ask.
Ask.
You follow your environmental observation with an open-ended question. So something like, what's keeping you busy this week outside of this migration project?
Right, because open-ended questions invite them to talk.
Exactly. It's a brilliant tactical move because they invite the other person to talk at length, which instantly transfers the conversational pressure off of you.
Okay, so they start talking. They tell you they are bogged down with onboarding 3 new contractors for the marketing team. Now what? Because if I just fire off another question, I'm going to sound like I'm conducting an interrogation.
Yeah, that's exactly why the S in ease is so important.
Ah, S for share.
Right, share. You offer a brief, relevant personal detail to make the interaction reciprocal. So when they mention the new contractors, you share a tiny bit of your own reality. You say, oh, I know how intense onboarding can be. I just helped train the new data analysts last month. It takes a lot out of you.
Oh, that's good. You give them a piece of information to hold on to.
Exactly. And then the final E is exit, which is closing the interaction smoothly.
Which we are absolutely going to do a deep dive on shortly because exits are so tricky.
Oh, they really are.
But wait, I need to jump in here with a reality check. If I'm sitting on a call and I'm mentally checking off an acronym like, okay, environment, check, now ask, check, now share, aren't I going to sound incredibly robotic? I feel like trying to run an algorithm in my head during a chat strips away all the authenticity.
That's a completely valid fear. And honestly, the first couple of times you try to consciously use a framework like ease, it might feel a little clunky internally.
Yeah.
But think of it like training wheels on a bicycle. The framework isn't there to turn you into a robot. It's there to lower your heart rate.
Oh, I see.
Once you know you have a reliable structure to fall back on, your panic subsides. And when the panic subsides, your genuine curiosity can actually surface. You aren't frantically plotting your next line anymore. You are just hunting for one interesting detail to engage with.
Which connects perfectly to another concept in our research stack, the 3-part listening loop from Smalltalk Master.
Yes, the listening loop.
It suggests that while the other person is talking, your only job is to listen for emotion, effort, or an odd detail.
That is the secret to sounding profoundly natural and empathetic.
How so?
Let's look at the effort piece, for example. Say your project manager mentions in passing that they spent their Sunday morning reorganizing the Jira board for the entire department.
Oh, man, on a Sunday.
Right. And most people will just reply with, wow, cool, or sounds busy.
Which immediately kills the momentum of the conversation.
Exactly. It's a dead end. But if you use the listening loop, you catch the detail, you name it, and you validate the effort.
So what would you say?
You'll reply, wait, you spent your Sunday morning doing the Jira cleanup? That is a huge amount of invisible work for the team.
Oh, wow. That's a phenomenal response.
Right.
Because it makes the other person feel incredibly seen. It proves you are actually in the conversation, living in the moment, rather than just queuing up your next sentence.
And it naturally leads into another fascinating metric from the active listening manuals, which is the 43.57 rule.
Yes. I saw this, and I really wanted to know the mechanics behind it. The rule states you should aim to talk 43% of the time and listen 57% of the time. But why that specific ratio? Like, what does holding back that extra 14% actually achieve?
Well, it achieves psychological comfort for both parties.
Okay.
For the native speaker, or the person across the screen, it fulfills their human desire to be heard.
Right.
People generally enjoy talking about their own experiences.
That's true.
But more importantly, for the non-native speaker, aiming for 57% listening mathematically reduces your translation burden. Gives you more time to process the vocabulary and the rhythm of the interaction. It literally buys you time.
Speaking of buying time,
Right.
the English learning platforms highlighted a tactic that feels pretty counterintuitive but makes total sense, which is the strategic use of filler words.
Oh, yes.
Because we are constantly told in presentation training to eliminate words like, and actually.
Right, in a formal speech, yes, you eliminate them.
Mm-hmm.
But in casual small talk, they are essential tools. Yeah, because when someone asks you a question and your brain needs a half second to translate and format the answer, jumping in with a drawn-out well, or, actually acts as a buffer.
It breaks that robotic cadence.
Exactly.
It prevents the deer in the headlights silence, and it actually mimics the natural, slightly messy way native speakers pace their own thoughts. It just gives your brain permission to pause.
It does. But, while these frameworks ease the listening loop, the 43.57 ratio, while they're incredibly powerful, they come with a massive caveat.
There's always a catch.
Always. If you flawlessly execute an American small talk framework with a Russian colleague, or say a German colleague, you might completely alienate them without even realizing it.
Wow, really?
Oh yeah. The rules of engagement change depending on the cultural map.
Okay, so we have to navigate the cross-cultural minefield, because what builds trust in Chicago might completely destroy it in Berlin or Moscow.
Exactly. Now, before we get into the nuances, we should probably establish the universal baselines. There are certain topics that are universally taboo across global business.
Right, the obvious ones. The research from uprov.uu and study.com mentions avoiding politics, religion, asking about salary, bragging about a new expensive car, prying into someone's intimate life, or indulging in office gossip.
Right, steer clear of all of that.
But there was one universal rule that stood out to me as incredibly insightful, which is to avoid negative framing.
You mean complaining?
Yes. Complaining about a policy or saying, well, that's not my responsibility, or whining that a deadline is unfair.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's true, bringing a heavy, toxic energy into a 2-minute casual chat is a disastrous move. It is almost impossible to recover from that vibe shift before the meeting starts.
Because you force the other person to absorb your stress rather than building a connection.
Exactly.
But once you move past those universal taboos, the cultural divides become really fascinating. The research from the Polyglottist Language Academy introduces a brilliant sociological framework developed by Aaron Meyer, which divides global business cultures into peaches and coconuts.
Oh, peaches and coconuts. Let's break this down because it perfectly explains so much workplace friction.
It really does.
So the United States is the classic peach culture. A peach is incredibly soft on the outside. Americans are, immediately friendly.
Right.
They smile at strangers in the elevator. They use your first name immediately. They'll ask about your weekend on the very first Zoom call.
But a peach has a hard pit in the center.
Right.
While Americans are very quick to establish a friendly rapport, getting to true, deep intimacy, the hard pit, is actually very difficult. The friendliness is a social lubricant. It's not a promise of deep loyalty.
Which brings us to the coconut cultures, places like Russia, Germany, or many Eastern European countries. A coconut is the exact opposite. It has a very hard, rigid exterior. People from coconut cultures are generally more formal. They do not smile at strangers without a specific reason.
No, they don't.
But if you manage to break through that hard outer shell over time, they are incredibly soft and intensely loyal on the inside.
So to see how this causes chaos, imagine a casual Slack call between an American peach and a Russian coconut.
Okay.
Let's just look at smiling. In America, smiling is a signal of politeness, ease, and collaboration. You smile to show you are not a threat.
But the cross-cultural research notes that in Russia, smiling without a genuine, tangible reason can be interpreted as insincere or even foolish.
Wow.
There is an old Russian proverb that essentially translates to laughter without reason is a sign of a fool. So a serious, neutral face in a public setting or a business meeting isn't a sign of hostility, it's just the professional baseline.
But an American peach looking at that serious face on a Zoom screen will immediately panic.
Right, they'll think something is wrong.
They'll assume the Russian colleague is angry or hates the project or hates them. So the American smiles harder and gets more overly enthusiastic.
Oh, no!
Which only makes the Russian colleague feel like the American is being fake and untrustworthy. It is a vicious cycle of cultural misinterpretation.
And it extends to how they view the concept of a relationship itself.
Oh, absolutely.
For an American, the word friend is wildly flexible. You have work friends, gym friends, friends you grab coffee with once a year. But the Russian translation for friend, drug, carries immense weight.
Right.
It implies deep loyalty, serious obligation, and a willingness to drop everything to help them.
So when an American tries to be overly buddy-buddy on day one, using the peach strategy of quick warmth, the Russian colleague might view it as incredibly superficial.
It even impacts how they give feedback. An American will almost always use the feedback sandwich.
Oh, the classic feedback sandwich.
Right. They'll say, I love the energy of this presentation. The data on slide 4 might need a slight tweak, but overall, fantastic job. Yeah. They soften the blow because they don't want to rupture the soft, friendly exterior.
Whereas in a coconut culture, directness is not rudeness. Directness is a sign of honesty and respect for your time.
Right.
If the presentation is flawed, they might just say, this data is incorrect and doesn't work. To an American, that feels like a brutal personal attack.
Yeah, that would sting.
But to a Russian or German colleague, it is just efficient, honest business.
Okay, so this is terrifying.
A little bit, yeah.
If I'm a non-native speaker, sitting in a massive cross-functional meeting with 5 different cultures, some peaches, some coconuts, some direct, some indirect, how do I know which rules to play by without offending half the room?
The safest and most effective strategy is to observe and mirror. You let them set the baseline.
Observe and mirror. Okay.
Watch how your colleagues interact before you jump in.
Yeah.
Do they stick strictly to task-oriented topics, or do they ask personal questions? Just match their energy, their tone, and their level of openness.
And if you are the one forced to initiate, what if you have to speak first?
If you must initiate, you lean heavily on the environment step of the EASE framework we discussed earlier.
Right, the context-based question.
Exactly. Ask about the shared project, the format of the upcoming meeting, or a neutral observation about the virtual space.
Because it respects everyone's boundaries. A coconut won't find an environmental question overly intrusive, and a peach will gladly use it as a jumping-off point to chat further.
Exactly. It is the universal safe zone.
Okay, so let's say you've done everything right.
Okay.
You mirrored their energy, you used your framework, you listened for effort, and the 2 minutes of small talk went beautifully.
Awesome.
But now the meeting is starting, or maybe you need to get off the call to join another one. How do you get out? Because I always compare this to accidentally hitting reply all on a sensitive email.
Oh, worst feeling.
You can write the most brilliant, perfectly crafted email in the world, but if you hit reply all and send it to the entire company by mistake, that catastrophic exit overrides every single good thing you did previously.
That is a very apt analogy. The exit is arguably the most critical part of the interaction, and unfortunately, it is the part where people fumble the most.
Why is that?
The psychology behind why we ruin endings is fascinating. We often feel obligated to fill any impending silence, or we feel a sense of guilt, like we are being rude by walking away. We overextend our welcome.
So how do we hit the runway smoothly?
Well, the Case Basics communication guides lay out a very clear strategy for a professional exit, and it relies on 2 pillars: time awareness and clear, specific closing signals.
Okay.
Awareness. It sounds like taking explicit control of the time. You transition by saying, I want to be mindful of your time before this next meeting starts, or I'll let you get back to your tasks now.
So you were framing the exit as an act of respect for their schedule rather than you just wanting to escape the conversation.
Yes, exactly. And then you express specific appreciation. The word specific is key here.
Yeah.
You don't just say, okay, thanks, bye. You say, thank you for sharing your perspective on that client feedback. That was really helpful. Or, I really appreciate you explaining that JIRA update.
Ah, I see. You anchor the exit to a specific detail they provided during the chat.
Yes.
Which, again, proves you are actively listening and not just waiting for it to end.
It leaves a lasting impression of competence and warmth. But there is one fatal mistake you have to avoid during the exit.
Which is...
Do not, under any circumstances, introduce a new question or a new topic.
Oh, man, I've seen this happen. Well, I'll let you go, but real quick, what did you think about the Q3 budget cuts?
Yes, it's a conversational collision. You are signaling that the interaction is over while simultaneously demanding more cognitive load from them. Keep the exit clean.
And what if you messed up earlier in the chat?
If you make a slight conversational misstep during the chat, maybe a joke fell flat or a cultural wire got crossed, do not over-apologize and make it weird.
Right.
Just smoothly redirect back to the environment and execute a clean exit.
And then, if it was a particularly meaningful chat or a new connection, follow up. Send a quick message later in the day referencing something you talked about. That is how you solidify that relationship equity.
That follow-up is the compound interest on the goodwill you just earned.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, let's pull all of this together. For anyone listening who normally dreads those unstructured minutes of chat, the takeaway from all this research is actually incredibly freeing.
It really is.
Building conversational confidence on a global team is not about achieving perfect grammar. It is not about masking your accent or pretending to be an extrovert.
Yeah.
It is about utilizing simple, clear language to lower your cognitive load. It's about leaning on a framework like EASE so your brain has a job to do.
Right.
It's listening specifically for effort or emotion, mirroring the cultural norms of the peaches and coconuts around you, and respecting everyone's time with a firm, graceful exit.
It's about turning a moment of panic into a repeatable process. Because once you have a process you trust, the authenticity and the human connection naturally follow.
Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave everyone with.
Okay.
Throughout this entire deep dive, we've framed these frameworks and tactics as strategies for non-native speakers to adapt and survive in English-dominant corporate workplaces.
Right, that's been the angle.
But if you zoom out and look at the trajectory of global business, non-native speakers who master this simplified, highly empathetic, culturally aware version of global English are actually setting a brand new gold standard for communication.
It completely flips the narrative.
Yeah.
The burden isn't just on the non-native speaker anymore.
Not at all. In the future, as teams become even more distributed and cross-cultural, it might actually be the native English speakers, the ones who rely on highly specific cultural idioms, fast-paced slang, and rigid localized assumptions who find themselves struggling to keep up in the global conversation.
Wow.
They're going to be the ones causing confusion.
They might be the ones who urgently need to learn the EASE framework and the 43.57 rule just to remain effective collaborators.
Absolutely. So the next time you log into that Zoom call 5 minutes early, and it's just you and the boss from Chicago, you don't need to panic.
No.
And you don't need to be a gymnast trying to stick a perfect landing. Just pick up the ball, observe the environment, and gently toss it back.